and I am absolutely excited to have the folks from eMotorrad joining us. eMotorrad, you're saying? Who's eMotorrad? These are a group of individuals who've come together and they are championing the electric bike revolution. Not just one, they've got multiple models. They're a huge success in India. They're branching out across the Middle East and beyond. We're going to take a deep dive into why these gentlemen have jumped onto this wave, what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're doing with Expo, how this thing called COVID-19 has had an impact on them, and more. You're going to love this conversation. We're kicking it off right now, right here on Catching Up. Gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to see you. How are you doing?
Hi, James.
Hello, James.
You know, when I got the email saying that, we got to have this conversation, I've got to admit, I was a little bit of a novice in the world of the e-bikes. I see them. There's all sorts of them. I'm here in Dubai. You guys are in India. You guys have got way more of these electric bikes going down in India than we have here. But I kind of thought gimmicky. What is this really a substantial business? Is this really going somewhere? So then I started digging into it. And I found some stats from 2019 that said this was a $15 billion industry, estimations, because it's so fragmented, it's hard to figure that out. 2020, the stats, $23 billion. And they figure by 2026, $47 billion industry. And then that word fragmentation jumped into it, which made me kind of go, the light went on. I just went, bingo, eMotorrad. This is why you guys are doing it, because this is actually an industry where you could get in and upset everything that's going on. And I thought, this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to get inspired. I'm going to learn something. The world's going to learn something. And I just want to pick your brains. So let's get started. But people are listening and they're going, okay, eMotorrad, you've got people with you. Who are they? Why don't we go around the table and literally get you to introduce yourselves and just give us all a little picture of what brought you to eMotorrad, because you all have very different backgrounds. Who wants to kick off?
Adi, would you start?
Yeah, why not? So, James, when we kickstart, we have a completely linked up story, and that is what brought us all together. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting us on the show. It's a pleasure. We had a wonderful invitation, the one that I never received before in my life. And that got me more excited than ever to probably do this with you and really be on the show with you. So thank you so much for that. James, my name is Aditya Oza. I belong to India, but I've worked in Dubai in the past. And now I handle marketing and HR and admin for eMotorrad. All of us co-founders handle one or two departments each. So these two fall under my kitty. I believe I'll leave it to Kunal and Sumit to introduce themselves. Then we can come on to the story of how we started.
Hi, James. This is Kunal. My full name is Kunal Gupta. I am so-called the CEO of the company. Try to handle anything and everything. Any fire that breaks in, probably I am the fire extinguisher there. Have been in the mobility industry for last 7 years, solving India's commute problem. Now on a task to solve world's commute problem with the green mobility. Yeah, that's a short background of mine.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah. Hi, James. This is Sumit this side. I have been a techno-commercial guy since beginning of my career with IoT and telematics units with applications in two-wheeler industry. That actually bounded us, me, Rajiv, and Kunal. That's how we got to know each other. And my background is I'm a business officer here. I run sales and operations for Indian abroad operations. That is a brief background of my.
Guys, it's great to meet you. It's great to have you here. So I just want to jump right in with the company. And I alluded to this in our intro that this market for e-transportation, e-bikes, is hugely fragmented in that the big names aren't necessarily running the show, and they don't necessarily have the necessary knowledge. I mean, they're trying to make this work. It's an open playing field. How do you guys situate yourself? Give me an idea, give us an idea where Emotorrad fits into this whole framework, this whole ecosystem of e-bikes.
Right.
India, please continue.
I'll just take this up. So, James, when this entire e-bike market is concerned, we were already into the mobility business, a few of us before this. And we used to be in touch and discuss about how mobility in India is getting impacted. We all believe and knew the fact that EV is the future. So electric vehicles are going to run like probably IC engines today. So each and every one of us is probably going to commute in an electric vehicle. That's when we realized that, there are EVs in the market which are themselves so bad that they are delaying the adoption of EV in the market. So people can't rely on EV products, so they doubt them. So we thought there isn't a EV product which is matching to the quality and the requirements of a place. The products that were coming in India were either of cheap quality or the Western success products. That's when we decided that we have to come out with a product which can probably be hit in India and match it to the requirements of India. So we were the first people to launch India's first dual suspension e-bike. Of course, our roads now are improved massively. Our government have done amazing jobs, but then still we needed that dual suspension bits. We came out with really a price range that can fix in those products. So we call ourselves affordable luxury. So we bring luxurious product in affordable price range, and that's what differentiates us.
How do you guys deal with the fact that we've got some pretty substandard product out there? People have maybe bought into some of those products. They've been disappointed, and now they're looking at your affordable luxury, but they've got that bad taste still in their mind. How do you guys deal with that?
The predominantly reason for this particular case were low entry barrier into the business. Any Tom, Dick and Harry can start the business in the country or globally. That was the real challenge. When we launched with eMotorrad Trust. Anything and everything happens to you. We have been maintaining 48 hours of resolution time.
Wow.
In an India where we are living with 1.35 billion, the domestics are way different than any other country. We have span across probably top 10 geographical areas kind of the world, where different states have different rules. COVID has impacted us, but we maintained that. In the first year of operation, our warranty claim settlement ratio was 1.3%.
Wow.
And the resolution time was 48 hours. And part replacement time was 7 days. We could ship the parts with the air, but we maintained the promises. At times when parts were not available, other OEMs raised their hands, said, I cannot do. Wherein we sent our spare bikes. Your down bike beat it with you. You drive my spare vehicle. So that kind of trust built in the organization, what we transferred to the customers, that gave us a massive boost in the country.
Would love to add something to it, James. So this replacements, this hit our pocket. But this is something which has helped us build all the trust in the country. When you go out, check out our reviews, check out the videos on YouTube, which consumers have been putting in, has been really positive for the site. Also, the USP being we never supply a similar kind of product to all the demographies, right? India is a land of varied demographies. It has snow, it has mountains, it has beach, it has everything. So we have customized, we have designed the products in a way that it suits all the terrains possible. And that is how we have been able to achieve the quality that we are providing to the market.
Do you find, I mean, because India is huge, it's such a diverse market. Do you find that different parts of India are more receptive to the e-bikes than other parts? Are you finding that?
Yeah, that is always the case, James. I think that is the case with the globe. Every single country has tier 1, tier 2 cities, metro cities. So there's a higher acceptance in metro cities where EV education is much more higher, but we're still working on educating the crowd all across the country.
Wow.
So James, to interest you, we have orders from the sweetest corners of the world. So Andaman Nicobar, which is probably between India and Japan somewhere. That part to Ladakh, which is on China border, to the southmost parts. So we have customers in the corners of India, and I think that gives so much pleasure. It's very hard for us to make them get the bike because our deliveries don't always cover it. But such customers, we always make sure that let's put a bike out there. Let's see what we have to do that.
I want to jump back to your warranty and this whole idea that your bike goes down, we've got a replacement for you. Is that pushing your competitors to also rethink how they do things? Are you pushing the market with these kinds of offerings?
Warranty terms actually were never innovated. Those were already there in the market. We just stood by it. We promised it, we delivered it, wherein other people couldn't do it. Simple text.
Yeah. So just do what
Yes,
you
I'll tell you
promised.
very interesting
Do
story.
what you promise, yeah.
Very initial days, I think we had 2 replacements happened on the same day, and I jumped in, and I never look into operations so much, but I jumped in thinking, oh, let's see what part has come back. There were 2 batteries that were supposed to be replaced. They came back. I went to Sumedh and Kunal asking, hey, what happened? Like, why did we replace them? And they said, no problem. It's perfect. I'm like, then why did we replace them? It's like just to win the consumer trust now. And I just stood there thinking, oh, wow, I mean, probably I should be caring the most about customer, being a marketing fella, but, I have my teammates who do that. So sometimes you're just doing replacements, just doing checks to keep the consumer happy. He thinks there is a problem, you do the replacement. Sometimes there is none. So I think that sets up the standard.
Said by Adi, there is an anxiety rather than product quality. That anxiety makes them think this product might be having some issues, wherein product is perfectly fine. Because of some bad experiences in the past, we are addressing that. So it's not just the product we have to take care, it is the emotion associated with the user that we are addressing.
And James, to connect with these people, we have a 24/7 video call support. So anytime any consumer faces a challenge, I don't think any automobile player in the world has provided that kind of a support wherein you just pick up the call, do a video call with the company and get your problem resolved. And that is where the consumers trust us the most, that no matter what, if the product fails, if any component fails, this company is going to stand by us on a video call. That's the USP.
What made you decide to go with a video call system as opposed to just, pick up the phone or a chat bot or something like that? Why the video?
James, when there's a face behind the call, I think the trust increases to a much more higher level than on the call. And that is what has played really well for us. And that is what have helped us winning the customer's trust.
You'll be surprised with the statistics. 93% of complaints received were education issues.
Wow. That's incredible.
This is really helped. Only 7% actually got converted to warranty.
Wow. That's incredible. And from a revenue perspective, if you don't have to be replacing stuff, that works so well. Much cheaper to have somebody at your dedicated call center doing the customer relations. It's not customer service, it's customer relations and making it work. Fantastic.
So James, as we said, to take this industry from 23 billion to 46 billion to 100 billion, I think we have to burn certain money in these customer relations. And that is how we'll be able to take this industry to a much larger scale.
So
India is a very big market, James. When we started, India was 22 million units a year on two-wheel, 22 million units on bicycle as well. So collectively 45 million existing industry, wherein this becomes exactly in between, the cost-wise and as well as the size-wise. So we are addressing the right sweet spot.
Is there, when I'm listening to you guys talking about this, super excited, there's super opportunity. India is a market that other manufacturers want and other service providers want to get into. You guys are there. Is someone might think, if they're sitting in the C-suite in a business situation, why not just stick with India and make that your sole point of sales, given that it is a gigantic market? What's the thought process going on with you guys that you are conquering India, but also looking the other way?
So James, India might be the largest market, but India is the toughest market as well. It is the highly price sensitive market when it comes to the demography, and people are really finicky. For the likes of automobiles, the IC engine automobiles, we have set some really high standards for the country. Right, we get really good quality automobiles in the country, and that is what people compare EVs to. Now, to achieve that quality and to sustain that quality is a very tough task. apart from that, adoption to EV is much more higher in any other country as compared to India right now. India is still getting educated towards EV, and India is a very tough field to play to. So we know for a fact, once we conquer India, there's no country which will be tough for us to go out there and do business. And that's why India for us.
One of the things that I didn't see, and I'm just curious, is your product, has it been completely engineered and manufactured? The components, are they all manufactured in India?
Majority of the products, around 90% of the product, is manufactured in India. Some products are imported, some components are imported from the country and assembled here.
Wow, that's fantastic. And when you start thinking about the demographics and you start thinking about your different products, what is pushing your thought? What's the sweet spot in the EV world right now when we're looking at electric bikes?
James, let me give you a stat to start off with there. So last 3 years of sales data, when we talk of electric motorcycles, 400,000 units sold last 3 years.
Across the globe.
Electric cars, 8 million units sold. Now, James, I want you to take a call on how many units of e-bikes sold in last 3 years.
I have no idea. I mean,
A random
give a random number to it.
I don't know, probably 8 million?
134 million units.
Oh no, come on, 134. Wow.
So we are in a gigantic market when it comes to e-bikes. Of course, the adoptability with cars, with motorcycles are soon to come. But e-bikes in 3 different world type in developed countries, very fastly adopted, really good markets, good competition as well. In the developing countries, it's a very tough market because awareness levels are just reaching there, products quality are just reaching there, the trust level need to be built in. And then the underdeveloped countries, it's going to happen with time. So we realized that we did very well and in the country which was hardest to crack in. So we thought, why not go and eat a bit of pie in other countries as well? We figured out that certain countries that suited us demographically, that gave us the exposure to the world. That's the reason we probably stepped out in a couple of countries now. So as we speak, we are already in India and Nepal because of similar demography. We are present in UAE, and UAE, the sole reason is it's the gateway to the world now. So of course, and as we speak, we are already had our soft launch in Japan, and we will be doing a full promo launch in the months to come. We are currently available in Japan. If anyone wants to buy it, it's by the name of Explorer and Glider. You can also book it off our websites. And we are planning more expansion till March 2021. So some really exciting news to come from our side.
Yeah.
So I find this interesting because when I look at India, that is a hot market for electric bikes. But the UAE, where I am, is not a hot market. I mean, it's a much different market. How does that change the way you present these products to the consumers?
So James, just will give you my experience. A week back, I was there present at the expo, presenting our products to a varied set of people right from UAE. We understood the fact that every single country or every single human is taking this product in a different way. While in India, people look at it as a commute use case. While you went to Dubai, people started using it as a fun product. They just loved standing on it and going for a ride. They were just having fun. So we sold a lot of units in UAE very recently. And when we ask people, are you going to go to office from this, or are you going to actually commute from this? Their answer is no. I'll take it for a Sunday ride. I'll take it for my Thursday, Friday rides. I'll go have fun with it. And that is how the market is going to change from a fun product to a commute product to a regular use case. I think Dubai is in the most initial stage. But what it does is a lot of people from across the globe keep visiting Dubai. And that is where it becomes a showroom for us to the world, right? People come there, experience the product, and probably take it back to their countries.
Actually, I want to come back to Expo, but I want to jump back to something you just said. Is there when we talk about public transport? So I want to fire into public transport. We've got a lot of people here in Dubai who obviously are commuters. You've been here, you've seen the roads, but we've also got a lot of people who are using public transport. your product fills that nice little gap of the last mile to the office. Is that something that you're actively working on explaining and trying to get people like here, like the public transport providers, the RTA, to accommodate your product on the transportation vehicles?
So, James, we have a product which is called Tribble. It's a tri-folding bike. It works like a suitcase when you're not using it. So you can actually drag it in a metro or any mode of commute you're traveling to, and you can pick it up back and drive it on the road. So it's as simple as to use on any last mile commute.
Wow. So this
and government as RTAs of Dubai have been very supportive in the initiatives that have come through. We really look forward for them to be massive, because this is a mindset changing, generation changing, a technology adoption process is going to take time. And we really expect a lot more to happen from the government side and also from the startup community to keep supporting government with new initiatives, new ideas, new things. So I believe there is a lot of things that are going to come hand in hand together for this to be a massive success.
Oh, wonderful. So tell me a little bit about Expo. How did that all evolve? How did you guys get involved with Expo 2020?
James, first of all, as a EV company, Indian EV company, we are the only company who's right now present in the Dubai UAE market. And that is how we got the opportunity to actually present at Expo. The first opportunity we got, we grabbed it with both our hands. There's so much of crowd. There's every single country present. There's so many people present there. And we're like, we have to give our best. We actually announced the launch of 3 new models in Dubai Expo. And we got a lot of interest from various countries, right? From Canada to US to Philippines to where not. Every single country has been coming there to us to open our branches in those countries, to open dealerships in those countries. And that is how the experience has been. We got to give test rides to almost all the countries across the globe. And that is what the biggest experience has been. Dubai, I believe every single consumer has to go once and experience that expo and understand what the globe is doing and what technology products are there available in the market. It's beautiful.
One of the things that becomes on the minds, or one of the things that is on the minds of many people who are in the manufacturing industry, many in the sales industry, are the effects of COVID. How have you guys dealt with this in your supply chain, in your marketing, etc.? How has COVID impacted on you guys and your industry?
So James, I think this has been a great opportunity for us. Not saying COVID was a good thing, but the cycling market, the e-bike market has picked up tenfolds after the COVID. And this has impacted us, our business in a very, very positive way. Although the supply chain has been impacted a bit, the costs have gone up, but the demand has also gone up like tenfolds. Everyone has been cycling post-COVID. Everyone wants to get fit. Everyone wants to get into something which is cleaner. There was a lot of EV education which happened back in 2020 across the globe, which has pushed our market to the next level. And it has been a very positive side for us to be in this space which has been blooming, which has been growing because of the COVID impact.
So, James, also very interestingly, we started amidst the COVID itself. I mean, we were planning for it, did not expect this to happen. But by the time we were ready to go to market, it was already, the COVID was there. We were scared. We were, of course, we were figuring out, will it work? Shops are closed. People are not going out. How is it going to work out? So now we talk a lot about it, very proud of it, but we were shit scared back then. We had a particular number of units for a very peak season in India. It's called the Diwali season, which has the highest automobile sales always. So we were hoping that by that season, we should be able to sell the most of it. We didn't realize what a response we got from the market. I mean, we were really thankful to God for that, and of course to our customers. Before that season could even start, 2 months prior to that, we sold out everything, and we had nothing to sell on that season itself.
Oh man, that's a great thing and a horrible thing.
That's a horrible thing as well. As you were mentioning the challenges of COVID, these were the challenges. Demands were inconsistent. You were having the growth not like an exponential curve. It was completely sinusoidal wave. You were on and off all the time. Your supply chains were impacted. Even though you have orders, you have taken money, you're not able to deliver because some part of the country is outbreak in COVID. You don't deliver there. Logistics are not functioning. They are taking longer routes. International ocean freights are touching sky high. Availability of vessels was a challenge. Availability of container was a challenge. So the positive side, yes, demand actually were high, but at the same time they were not willing to pay out extra a penny for that particular getting the product, wherein our costs were very high with respect to international shipment, with respect to domestic shipment, with respect to cost associated to run the plant. You were not supposed to run with 100% of your capacity. You were supposed to run with 50% of capacity. At times you were completely off for 2-3 weeks. So these were the other sides of the challenges. We definitely had a very bumpy road. We have all made through, and we have established the brand.
And the worst part, James, was we also had teammates who lost lives, who had seen lives lost in their families. The impact that had on us, it was very important for us to stand by them, to make them understand and realize, I mean, this is something nobody can help. Yeah. Sumedh himself, interestingly, was in ICU for almost 10 days. Sumedh, is it? And we were very hopeful, but unfortunately, he's still with us. No, but yeah, Sumedh has been through the worst of COVID himself. And it was very hard to see the impact on the actual life of people. Of course, the business side can always be taken care of with time, but personal losses.
The fact that you guys and Sumedh, I'm really happy to hear that you've come through things and you're recovering and recovered. The message that you guys have just given is that from a business perspective, working in very extreme conditions has tested your business, allowed you to be nimble and change things, which can only be good when times are good. You're going to be very flexible to read what's going on and be able to make those changes. Where again, when we talk about this fragmented industry, some of the big names, we know who they are. Those guys not necessarily as flexible because of the way their business runs. So that's really, it's got to be really exciting for you guys when you sit down and chat.
We are very agile. Yes.
That has been a blessing in disguise for us, James.
One of the other things I'm really interested in is bicycles are old school technology and the e-bike is a new school technology. Well, a marrying, really, truly a great example of Internet of Things technologies. How do you see some of the innovation that you're pushing materializing, and what can you imagine these vehicles are going to look like in the near future, where extreme changes can take place in technology?
So the best part of the startup EM, what we believe in here is the agility, as you rightly said. And we anticipate change and we prepare for it rather than resisting it. So Internet of Things, as you rightly said, is the next innovation what EM is bringing in next 8 weeks, because we are already investing into Internet of Things, and that the bike will look like there will not be any display or instrument cluster or any information system on the bike. Your phone will become an information system for you. All the bike inputs, right from locking and unlocking, things will happen on the phone. Now, what is there in the future? So that is something nobody can anticipate. But one thing which we are very, very fond of is, or what we are very strongly believe in is, we don't associate ourselves with single form factor of mobility, which is e-bike. Tomorrow, if there is any innovation which a lot of labs, a lot of research, a lot of scientists are working through, there is different form factor of mobility. Maybe instead of BLDC motor, we are shifting to radial clutch. Instead of the lithium-ion batteries, we are going to solid-state batteries. We will be the people who will experiment at the first. India, as Adi said, we experimented with dual suspension bike. It has 2 suspensions. In India, the common notion is nobody drives 2 suspension vehicle. We went and tried. This is what it is happening. This is what is a new innovation in the bike. We must introduce. We did it. In India, people are not habitual for 20-inch size of tire. We launched it. We are successful with it. So we are not shying out from experimenting it, because we are startup. We have that flexibility with us. So to conclude or to give that message, we are definitely not associating ourselves with just one form factor. If there is evolution in the form factor, we will be the people who will be shouting out at it. We will be the people who will be experimenting it. With respect to technological innovation, how the future look like? The future look like as connected vehicle solution. Connected vehicle, you're connected. You're through continuous your phone, you're connected with the vehicle. That is how we look at it with the
So
technology.
James, what Sumit here mentioned is tomorrow if you give a e-bike to your kid and he's going to school, you can geofence it from your phone. So if he steps out of the geofence, you get to know. You can set timings on the time when he rides it. You can probably book a ride with Kunal in a city where you would stay together, plan it out for a Sunday. Give a call out, and probably me and Sumit can join you as well when we see that. So all this community aspect is going to come in. Of course, a lot of we believe that the commute has to be reliable. That has happened with us now. It has to be adoptable. So we are now trying to adopt to different region, different people, their needs. And then the technical aspect comes in where the growth happens exponentially. When we talk about computer systems, you see the 90s were more about, getting a reliable system that gives you, the 80s were more about, in fact, the correct answers in the first place and getting to, then it came about making it easier for people to use, giving them applications that actually can make their lives easier. So I think we have done that as well now. With time to come, I think we will be able to adopt and innovate in different spaces. Like now we're coming up with the suitcase bike already in UAE. I think there's a lot of innovation that can come through that can just blow our mind off. We are right now also innovating a lot in cargo delivery segment. So James, you mentioned that UAE is not the market, but who's delivering all your food every day? I mean, that's coming on cargo bikes.
I think that was when I was reading about the cargo solutions, because absolutely, I mean, I live in the suburbs in Dubai, if you can have a suburb.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of folks riding around on electric scooter things. And I think it's kind of like, I'm just looking at your bikes here. It's kind of like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The delivery.
Yeah.
And I noticed the charge issues. They do have some charge issues because I see them running out at certain parts. And I noticed they're not really made for carrying cargo. So when you mentioned, you're coming out with a bike that's geared more towards cargo, and I started looking up at your battery stuff, and you're looking at different ways of powering things, and you're willing to move. I thought, wow, this is yet another segment, again, very much influenced out of India, that is not necessarily being satisfied in other areas, and I could see it being very, very easy to take that up here.
Also, James, talking about the innovation, you never know when EM comes up with self-driving, self-balancing bikes in like next 5 to 7 years. AI is coming into play. We never know if you're working on that technology. So yeah, the future looks bright with these bikes.
Talk to me a little bit about batteries though, because and charging. How do you sell that? In that, that can take time. There can be a time issue there. The duration of the charge. What that's got to be a big question on people's minds.
See, when you're using e-bike for a personal commute recreation purpose, charging is not really an issue. You can take out any time 2 hours and 3 hours, your vehicle is 70-80% charged. If you take out 3.5 hours, it is 100% charged. Okay. So that is something where you can charge at any point. You can charge it at the socket next to you, just like a laptop. So for a personal commute angle, recreation angle, that is not a problem. When it comes to a cargo solution, then it plays a role. How soon you can do this. So when you're doing this, so there are two ways we are addressing this problem. First thing is increasing battery capacity, which will give you very long range. And second thing is coming up with battery charging stations, wherein you can charge the spare batteries and you can swap it. So your charging time is irrelevant with respect to driving your effectiveness of your fleet. If you're having 100 vehicles doing delivery, so you cannot take out 8 hours from every vehicle for charging, 6 hours from every vehicle for charging. So the solution there we are working is battery swapping stations and battery charging stations, which will keep all the vehicle up and running all the time. That is the solution we are coming with. If you get into a tech where you start charging your battery with the fast chargers, high-end chargers, it will reduce the lifespan, which will high on pockets for delivery guys. And if you implement fast charging for your personal use case, you're unnecessarily building the cost. So it's a very simple solution, James, at the moment. For your personal vehicle, it doesn't require a fast charger. For your cargo vehicle, fast charger will not solve your problem in long run. So on your delivery vehicles, we are working with swapping stations.
I think that's an issue that you've explained it very well. The whole idea of fast charging, but there's a cost to that, and that's the lifespan of those products. And I love the idea of the swapping stations. I mean, it just makes so much sense.
Right.
And
That's right. But James, we are also coming up with every e-bike chargeable at any point you want. So if you ride up to your studio, you can probably plug in there, and if you go to the cafe next door, you can plug it in there. So it's about being accessible and to have the access to battery charging anywhere and everywhere. Probably, I think that's going to be a big game changer as well, alongside what Sumit mentioned.
guys, I'm in Dubai. You know that. I haven't been to Expo 2020 yet. How do I see your bikes at Expo 2020? Where do I go look? Where am I going to find them?
Now you have to go to the India Pavilion, James. And we are really proud and happy to announce that we are the only EV company from India who has its product placed at Indian Pavilion.
Hey, congratulations, guys. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you will find it as us at India Pavilion, James.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to it. Wait, you guys must do some crystal ball gazing. And I know we've talked around this, and you've talked about all sorts of change and how you never know what's going to happen with technology and this, that, and the other thing. But looking back 5 years at what you were doing, each of you looking back at 5 years at where you were, what you were studying, what you were doing, where you are today, what do you think is going to come in the next 5 years for you guys? Why don't we go around the table just to give you a little chance to think about that?
That's a very interesting question, James.
I think flying two-wheelers. So I've gone from petrol two-wheelers to electric. Now I want to fly. Maybe that. I don't know.
See, practically speaking, James, I believe adoption and working on market maturity is something which we believe we will be the key people. I always remember Adi comes and tells us one thing when back in 1970s or 80s, where in Japan, there was one big company that's still big company, Sony. That CEO came and told everyone, boss, we have to make Japan known for quality, not just our company. And that's how he comes and says, boss, our vision is to make the mobility name of India, country, in the world of EV market, not just our company. So I believe more and more people, more and more entrepreneurs should come join us or compete us, but work in EV market and make India known for quality and make India known for giving the right kind of products.
Fantastic.
I think, James, from a very practical perspective, we should be the players who help not just the developed countries and the country with big money, but also underdeveloped and developing countries adopt to EV. We want to play a very big role there. A lot of the business that we do is not something that every businessman in the world would have done, because it's we do it from a lot of sense of capturing the market. We do it from the sense of how it's going to be in the future. But there's a lot that we're trying to do for African continent as we speak, as we said today. I mean, it's far-fetched. We are still in the R&D for them, developing things and coming out with products. So we see a big role to be played to help the entire globe come to make them shift to the EV space altogether. The reason is, if they all don't, we are still fighting the same monster of global warming. And I think we all have a big role to play, each and every individual, right from making our daily choices to probably coming up with a company that could probably change the world. I think there's so much to be done. And I see us to play our small, big role wherever possible in that.
Yeah.
You guys still really have quite a small company. Am I correct? When I'm looking at it, it's a small company doing very big things.
A small company with a very big vision, James.
So one other thing, and I mean, it looks so deceiving because we all look so young, but do you get folks when you walk into those meetings, and look, you guys are all very knowledgeable. You know your product. You're well tested with things, but do you ever walk into the room and they kind of look and say, "You guys look a little young to be doing all this"? Do you ever get that?
Always.
How do you deal with that?
Sumit doesn't.
how do you deal with that? Because it's instantly, you've got to prove more than the person who's been working in whatever field forever, who might not be nimble, might not really know about this product and the future and the possibility. Yet you've now got to do that extra proof because, oh, you're the young guys. Oh, you're the new guys on the block. You're the.
Then it's always about what we are doing and what we are speaking, then how we look. And India has been creating a lot of young entrepreneurs who's changing the world all over the globe in different products. So I think we get the benefit from that. And our product speaks for itself. We don't have to go out and present us. Our product is the face, and it has to be that way.
This is true.
James, we always get compliment for having a very young team. So probably you'll see our teammates. We have a tremendously young team, and we believe that we are in a space where you won't find people with 20 years of experience. That's not possible. The EV space was not there as big as it is 20 years back. So we are in a space where we have to find the right talent with right amount of experience and the right amount of passion. So, we always discuss this in our meeting, James, and we say we will definitely find a lot of people with different skills, but we need to find the people with passion because they are going to change this industry. And we're just looking for them every day of the week, trying to find the right matches here and there and make it work. So yeah, definitely. I get that a lot, James, it does happen quite often.
It's true. Two things have changed us. One is the team, what we have, and infrastructure, what we're sitting at. And the second thing is product. People don't trust. People say, you're young guys. You're just been here for a couple of years, for a few years. How do I trust you? All those questions, what you're saying, you're bang on the point. It happens. But the moment they see the product, they come and see the infrastructure. Come and see the culture, what we have built in the company. That is something which actually then makes a cakewalk for us to go through.
And that's invaluable. Yeah.
We've had a great chat, guys. What have I missed? What have I not asked you about that you need to tell me about? What have we not spoken about?
I think we have covered.
There's so much of it. I'm just thinking, James, what should we talk about? But James, I have a question to you. Have you ever been to India?
Never. No.
When do we get the chance to host you now?
Can you imagine? And this is on me. I've got some great friends, really great friends in Rajasthan. I've been invited over and over again. I've been in the Middle East for 22 years. Have I made it 2.5 hours? I see the Spice Air, I see the Air India flights flying in all the time. I live by the airport, and I've never made it. And part of it is I have so many friends who are Indian who I've met who are here. Yeah. I don't know. It's an omission on my part that I do definitely have to fix when we can travel safely again, for sure.
Absolutely. We really look forward to you coming down, James. And there's so many different things, different aspects of a country you can see when you come down here. Also, from the mobility perspective, I think you'll get an idea of there's a drastic change in mobility when it comes from a metro to a suburb to probably a town in the country. So I think there's so much to look at.
And when you're going to ride our bike in Dubai, I want the pic of yours with that experience of 30 seconds what you built.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go down to Expo 2020. I'll go.
We do have a showroom there, James. How about you hit up to our showroom once?
Where's your showroom? Give us.
It's in downtown Bay Area, Business Bay Area.
Okay, cool.
So we'll get the team connected to you, and
That's
hopefully
great.
get one bike for you.
Yeah, we'll look it up and we'll go give it a ride. We'll go give it a ride around the canal. That'll be fun. Oh,
a lot of fun.
I absolutely look forward to the opportunity to meet you guys in person, whether you're coming this way or whether we're somewhere in between. But I'm really excited about what you're doing. And when we talk about, and you mentioned it, Kamal, you mentioned it, we've got to do things to fix our environment now. And that requires us to change the way we think.
Right.
And this is a great way to change that way we think. And I know that there are some statistics that talk about, well, why are people on electric vehicles? And the majority of them, there's a small group of people who might say, well, I go for electric because, I'm not really that fit. But that's quite a small group. It's enhanced experience. It's the time, it's convenience, it's that last mile. all of these reasons, and you guys are right there and playing in the field to change it, and thinking about how are we powering these things, and thinking about how do we link in what everyone's carrying around with them, the mobile phones. How do we link that into this product, and how do we make it sexy for people to say, I want one of these instead of a car, or I want one of these instead of a motorcycle. This is where I want to go. And so I'm really excited what you're doing. And really, I see the excitement and the pride that you're the only EV operator at Expo 2020 at the India Pavilion. That's spectacular. Guys, this is, look at the smile on the face. It's like, this has been a lot of fun. And I'm looking at your faces. You know, it's really been a pleasure to speak with you. And you've really taught me a lot and taught our listeners a lot. Thank you very much, guys.